Welcome to the deep dive. So you've sent us this detailed document, the Economic Engineering Project.pdf. It's all about a company, Living Mayim. Right.
That's the one, focusing on their digital water monitoring and filtration project.
In Central Asia.
Yeah.
Okay. So our mission today, basically, is to break this down, pull out the really key stuff.
Exactly. What's the problem? What's their solution?
And, crucially, the economics. Is it viable? Does it actually stand a chance of making a difference long term?
Right. We want to get past the jargon and see the real potential and, the sustainability.
Okay, let's dive in then. The report starts strong, highlighting this pretty severe issue in Central Asia.
Yeah, water scarcity, big problem.
And not just scarcity, but poor management, limited access to clean water. It sounds quite challenging.
It really is. And a key point they make is how current monitoring works, or rather, doesn't work so well.
How so?
Well, it's often slow, relies on paper, lots of room for error.
Ah, the old paper trail. Not exactly efficient for managing something as critical as water.
Not at all. It really hinders effective governance, getting water where it's needed most, so you can see why there's a need for something better.
Definitely sets the stage. So what's Living Mayim actually proposing to do about it?
Their idea is quite interesting. It's a mix of things. They're building a digital system, they call it MEAL, monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning.
MEAL system. Okay.
And they're pairing that directly with a water filtration system designed specifically for the region.
Right.
Big emphasis on making it easy to use. Good design, simple app access.
So individuals, households, they can actually see their own water quality data.
Exactly. That's the goal, putting the information directly in people's hands.
That feels like a major upgrade from, waiting for some report somewhere.
Yeah.
Much more immediate.
It is. But here's where it gets, I think, really clever. They're putting sensors inside the water filters.
Inside the filters themselves. Wow.
Yeah. So you get real-time data flowing from the point of use. That data feeds into the mobile app, but also a web platform for field workers.
So the field teams can add more info, like about the pipes, usage.
Precisely. Infrastructure condition, usage patterns, water quality checks, all collected digitally.
Okay, that's quite comprehensive.
And there's another layer, GIS technology.
Geographic information systems for mapping.
Exactly. Mapping water sources, distribution lines, where the scarcity is worst. It creates this synchronized real-time picture. A visual dashboard almost.
So moving from maybe patchy paper records to this live digital map,
Yeah.
that's a transformation.
It really is.
Yeah.
A whole digital strategy for a complex physical problem.
Now, the document talks about total quality management, PQM. Says it's the company's DNA. What does that actually mean practically? Is it just buzzwords?
That's a good question. It seems to be more than just talk for them. Embedding TQM means they're committed to, continuous improvement, always looking to make things better.
Okay.
Viewing everything as a process, strong leadership focus on quality, making decisions based on data.
Which their digital system should provide plenty of.
Right. And involving stakeholders, being transparent about water quality info. It suggests a commitment that goes beyond just the initial installation.
So it's about the long game, adapting, improving over time.
Exactly. Which is pretty crucial in a challenging environment like Central Asia. It underpins the whole thing, really.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we have the problem, the tech solution, the underlying philosophy. Let's switch gears to the economics, the economic engineering part. This is key for you, our listener, right? Is this financially sound? Is it built to last?
Absolutely. And the plan dives deep here. It starts with this company risks and scenario technique economic calculation.
Scenario technique, what does that involve?
They basically looked at 3 possible fetchers: a worst case, a most likely, and a best case scenario.
Smart. Trying to bracket the possibilities.
Yeah, it's prudent planning. They analyzed key financial variables for each.
Like what?
Things like unit demand, how many filters they expect to sell or install, the price per unit, variable cost per filter, fixed costs overall, even the potential salvage value down the line.
Okay, the core numbers. And what did the analysis show? Did it look promising?
Well, they calculated the expected net present worth, the ENPW, and it came out positive.
Net present worth.
Yeah.
That's basically the projected profit in today's money, right? Accounting for time.
Exactly. A positive NPW is generally what you want to see. It suggests the project is expected to generate value.
Any red flags? What up risk?
They looked at that too, using variance and standard deviation. The numbers pointed towards a Moderate level of risk.
Moderate.
Yeah.
Okay. So not negligible, but maybe acceptable.
Apparently acceptable enough for them to decide to move forward. It seemed like a calculated risk they were willing to take.
All right. Now, the report also talks about long-term investment costs and payback periods. It mentions a specific growth-oriented plan.
Yes. Option 2, the growth-oriented plan. This one involves taking on that moderate risk, but with the expectation of increasing cash flows over the project's life.
So higher potential rewards later on.
That's the idea. They even draw a comparison to renewable energy projects.
Ah, okay. Like solar or wind. Big upfront cost, but growing returns over time.
Exactly that kind of model. Significant initial investment, but expected to pay off increasingly as it matures.
So what are the key numbers for this growth-oriented plan? What do they project?
The figures are, well, they're pretty striking. A significantly positive net present worth.
And the internal rate of return, the IRR.
Exceptionally high, 544%.
Wow. 544%. That
Yeah.
sounds almost too good to be true.
It's definitely an eye-popping number. The IRR is essentially the effective rate of return on the investment. A number that high suggests huge potential profitability if the projections hold.
That's the big if.
It is. And for you, listener, a number like that should prompt a closer look at the assumptions. Are they realistic? What needs to happen for that return?
Does the report acknowledge that, the potential uncertainty?
Yes, it does add a caveat. Extremely high IRRs can imply higher risk or uncertainty in achieving those cash flows.
But Living Mayim connects this back to their core ideas.
Right. They link this optimism to their TQM principles and the expected effectiveness of that digital meal system. They believe those elements will help deliver.
Okay, so the management philosophy and tech are seen as de-risking factors, in a way. What about the payback period? How long until they recoup the investment?
They project 9 years for the payback period.
9 years.
But that's with a key assumption. A government grant covering a large chunk of the initial investment.
Ah, the grant. That's
Yeah.
important context.
Very important. They also mentioned that TQM, the continuous improvement focus, is expected to shorten that payback period further
How so?
by improving efficiency, reducing costs over time, allowing them to recoup the initial outlay faster. It seems the grant terms also only require a small part to be repaid into a trust fund for other water projects.
So that grant is a major lever in the financial plan. What if it wasn't there? Did they model that?
They did. They looked at hypothetical, conservative, and moderate model designs without the grant.
And the results?
Still positive net present worths, which is good, but the IRRs were lower, and the payback period stretched out quite a bit.
How much longer?
17 years for the conservative model, 15 for the moderate one. Considerably longer than the 9 years with the grant.
Okay.
They also calculated the equivalent annual worth, EAW, for comparison. It really highlights just how beneficial that grant is to the project's financial profile.
Yeah, it makes the growth-oriented plan look much more attractive with that support. Okay, what about the day-to-day running costs, operating expenses?
They break that down too. Company operating expense calculation. They've listed annual costs for things like sales, admin, rent, debt payments, even maintenance and backup power.
And the total?
They give a total annual figure and then project it over 20 years. It adds up, as you'd expect.
Ongoing costs are always a challenge. How do they plan to cover those consistently for 20 years?
This is another really interesting part of their financial structure. They mention a sponsor creating a trust fund.
A dedicated trust fund.
Yes, specifically set up to cover all those projected operating expenses for the full 20-year project life.
Wow.
They calculated the initial amount needed for the fund and the income it's expected to generate. According to their figures, the fund's revenue should actually exceed the total operating expenses.
So the running costs are essentially pre-funded.
Yeah.
Ring-fenced.
That's how it appears. It becomes a key part of their net income calculation, providing a stable source for operational funding. Seems very prudent.
Very. Okay, so costs are covered. What are the other side? Revenues. The potential upside for Living Mayim.
They project that in the company potential revenues calculation, there's a table showing key figures over time.
Like?
Total revenue from sales, marginal revenue per unit, that trust fund income we just discussed, operating expenses, net income, gross revenue.
Employee commissions, net revenue after those.
Right, gross profit, operating income, the whole picture.
Any key trends in those projections?
One thing they highlight is an increasing net profit margin over the years.
Suggesting they expect to become more efficient or profitable as they scale up.
Exactly. So not just covering costs via the trust fund, but also growing profits from the core business of providing clean water solutions.
Okay. Did they look beyond basic profit and loss? Any financial ratios?
Oh, yes. They calculated quite a few key ratios based on things like total sales, net income available to stockholders, average equity, total assets, interest expense,
Ratios can tell you a lot. Which ones did they focus on?
return on common equity, or ROE, how well they use shareholder money.
Okay.
Total assets turnover, how efficiently they use assets to make sales. Profit margin on sales, profitability per dollar sold. Return on total assets, ROA profit relative to total assets.
And ROE again.
Yes, they emphasize ROE as particularly insightful because it combines earnings, asset efficiency, and financial leverage. Gives a rounded view.
So a pretty thorough financial health check projected there. What about the overall return on investment, the ROI? That's often the bottom line people look for.
They tackled ROI using two different approaches. One used the capital asset pricing model, CAPM. Assuming the project was fully equity financed, this gave a required ROI of 25%.
So like the minimum return investors might expect given the risk.
Exactly, the benchmark they needed to beat.
And the other method?
That one calculated ROI based on the sum of projected net income over the project life, and that number came out much, much higher.
Reinforcing the idea of strong positive returns.
Yes. Very strong positive net returns are anticipated. They also provided an annualized ROI figure.
So multiple angles suggesting a potentially good investment. Now, the report also mentions economic efficiency and effectiveness. How is that different from pure financial return?
Good question. This shifts the focus a bit towards the impact per dollar spent, not just profit. They used cost-benefit ratios, specifically the cost-effectiveness ratio, or CER.
Cost effectiveness.
Yeah.
Trying to measure the health impact achieved for the money invested.
Exactly. Maximizing the positive health outcomes like years of life gain or deaths prevented relative to the program's cost in different places.
That makes sense for a project like this. It's not just about the company's bottom line.
Precisely. And in their analysis, a lower CER means a more cost-effective program, more bang for your buck, health-wise.
Did they calculate this for different countries?
Yes, they presented CER values for Pakistan, Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan.
What factors went into that calculation?
Things like the estimated cost of their program in each country, local life expectancy, water quality scores like the EPI index, death rates related to water issues, and an estimated health effects score based on life years gained.
So it gives a way to compare where their investment might have the biggest health impact.
Exactly. Helps prioritize or understand the potential impact across different parts of Central Asia.
Very useful. Anything else on efficiency?
They briefly mention marginal efficiency of capital, which they basically equate to the IRR we already talked about, the return on each extra dollar invested.
Yeah.
And they included a simplified projected balance sheet, too, just showing the main categories: assets, liabilities, equity, a standard financial snapshot.
Right. So it seems the economic side has been thoroughly considered. Let's move to the how, the actual implementation, project management stuff.
Sure. The plan covers company authority and milestones. It starts with funding.
Funding authority, how does that work?
They state the initial budget got supervisor approval, if they need more money later.
Which often happens.
Indeed. The project manager has to submit a formal project change request that then needs approval from designated project sponsors. So there's a process.
A control mechanism for the budget. Good. Who's actually in charge of running the project day to day?
That falls under company oversight authority. There's an appointed project manager. This person is responsible for, well, everything project control related. Planning, execution, coordinating resources.
Following a specific methodology.
Yes, Living Mayim's established project management approach. That includes creating plans, getting them approved, tracking schedules, holding meetings, managing risks, and reporting progress to stakeholders.
Sounds like a standard, structured approach. Makes sense.
Huh.
Who are the key stakeholders involved here? Who has an interest in this?
They've mapped that out clearly in a company stakeholders table. It lists who's involved, their role, how much influence they have, and their level of interest.
And it's probably quite a few people in groups.
Oh, yeah. It's extensive. You've got the internal team, executive director, project sponsor, PM, team members, finance manager, then external partners. Nonprofit network affiliates, suppliers, consultants like Norman Hawkins, partner orgs like World Vision, key individuals like Henry Deneen, Jeff Lasta, Hushil Chung, Scott Gillis, Michael Pirner, Peter Rom, Terry Dalrymple are named.
And crucially,
The end users in Central Asia, of course, plus government agencies, local community leaders, even legal counsel and PR folks.
wow, that's a wide net. Really highlights how many different interests need to align for something like this.
Absolutely. It's a complex ecosystem.
What about the timeline? Any key milestones laid out for the early stages?
Yes. Major companies' project milestones with target dates. It covers the initial period.
What's included?
Things like the official project start, technical prep, like setting up their ArcGIS Survey 123 system for data collection,
Okay, the tech setup.
developing data quality tools, training for staff and users, rolling out the GIS mapping, evaluating how well it works initially.
Implementing the full meal system.
Right. And even a formal first-year project closeout to review everything. It provides a pretty clear roadmap for getting started.
Seems structured. What about the internal organization of Living Mayim itself? Roles and responsibilities.
Section 4.1 covers company organization. It outlines the structure and defines who does what.
Key roles.
Executive director for overall vision and board approval. Project sponsor is the champion, resource provider, decision approver, project manager for execution, team members doing the work.
Finance manager, legal, PR.
Yep. Finance manager for the money side, external consultants for specific expertise, legal counsel for governance and risk, media PR for communications, even an internal auditor for quality and compliance checks.
So clear roles within the team.
Seems that way. Clear lines of responsibility.
And finally, the report mentions charter approval. What's that about?
It's basically the formal sign-off. Table 16 lists the individuals who officially approved the project charter at the beginning.
Who was involved in giving the green light?
It includes the key figures we just mentioned: executive director, sponsor, PM, finance consultant, legal, PR, internal auditor. Formalizes the buy-in across the organization.
Got it. Well, this has been a really thorough deep dive into the Living Mayim plan. It certainly paints a picture of a comprehensive effort.
It really does. What stands out to me is that integration, the technology, the economic planning, and the focus on community and sustainability. That combination is powerful.
Yeah, you really see how water management, digital tools, financial viability, and community buy-in are all linked.
Yeah.
You can't really succeed without all those pieces working together.
Exactly right. And hopefully you, our listener, now have a much clearer grasp of the whole project, the problem they're tackling, the solutions, the financial projections, and how they plan to actually make it happen.
Definitely feels like we've covered the key ground. So maybe a final thought to leave our listener with as we wrap up.
Yeah.
Consider this. This project provides a fascinating model, doesn't it? An integrated digital solution for a critical resource challenge. It makes you wonder, how could similar approaches be applied elsewhere for other resource management issues? Water, maybe energy, maybe food systems?
Right. And what does this tell us about the importance of looking beyond just the technology, considering those economic and social factors from the start?
How can models like this be adapted, scaled, and ultimately contribute to long-term success in other parts of the world facing similar pressures? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.